All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Rose with the Eline Podcast, and I'm your podcast host. And today I have Gabrielle, the beauty. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Gabrielle's history, what she does for a living, and in short, pretty much you're a Black Trans Lives Matter activist. Um, you work with your programs manager for what, the Okra Project, right?
Yeah, I am. So that just happened, but ding, ding, ding. I'm going to be the director of programs starting May 1st.
Oh wow! Congrats! Oh my God!
I know it happened quickly. Like I started with the organization and then they were like, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and make you director of programs because you've been doing a kick-ass job. And I was like, oh, thank you.
I love that. We're definitely okay. We're gonna dive into that, but actually, okay. So before we start and dive in, I want to start off with two truths and one lie. So a little icebreaker, little game before we get into it. So pretty much, you name two truths and you name one lie. So pretty much, I need to guess the lie and the two truths.
So two truths and one lie. Wow. I got to think about it for a minute. Process. Okay. I think I got it. So I've been engaged. I have lived in the South. And I've dated a rapper.
Ooh. Okay, so one of the truths, you lived in the South. And I just say that because I know of St. Louis, a little bit, a little bit of history about you. So the other truth, I will say that you've been engaged.
No.
Really?
Yeah, I have not been engaged. I wish, but I haven't been engaged.
Okay, and why I said that was because, okay, and so for you guys, a little history on me and Gabrielle. Um, we followed each other for years online on Instagram, and I don't know, it's just something about your growth and just seeing like every year, every month, seeing what you do, how you've progressed in life. I love it. It's amazing. It's just so beautiful. I love it. And so that's why I was like, oh my gosh, I have to hit her up so we can chat. I really want.
I feel the same way about you.
Thank you so much. But I definitely just want the world to know more about you because you have like a lot to offer in the world, and I got to give you your flowers.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
okay.
Love
Yeah.
you.
Aw. Okay, so about the engagement, so I did see a while back that you were, dating someone, and then, it seemed like for a while, and then I realized, you both weren't like, dating anymore. So that's why I just kind of assumed that.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
think there was also like a little controversial because there was a picture that he and I posted. I remember at one point that I had this big rock on my finger, and everyone was like, wait a minute. And I was like, I never like cleared it up. I never said anything, but yeah.
Yeah,
But no, we got engaged.
okay, so no, but you dated a rapper.
I
So
have dated a mainstream rapper. And if you know anything in regards to like those type of relationships, especially as a Black trans woman, it
yeah,
was very low key. So I won't say who it was. I
right,
won't spill his tea, of course, to be respectful. But and we'll get into that, I'm sure, later on.
yeah,
But
we'll get in that for sure. We'll get in that for sure. Okay, because we have like a lot to talk about. So, pretty much, so you are like a Black Lives Trans activist, uh, DEI consultant,
Mhm.
and you just pretty much announced your new position with the Okra Project. So,
Yeah,
congrats.
thank you.
So, can you explain to us the Okra Project and what it's about?
Yeah, so the Okra Project is a non-for-profit organization. It's a collective basically that seeks to uplift, help, and eradicate some of the hardships that the Black trans and queer community faces today. So like we do work with like food insecurity, housing, you know, therapy. We offer like a bunch of programs, especially now as a director of programs, I get to like lead and create and cultivate these amazing programs that'll help my community. So I'm very excited. They started about 5 years ago. Um, and then like trickled into COVID. During the George Floyd protests, they grew to an astronomical just
Yeah, for sure.
size. They started very grassroots. And like when I say grassroots, Okra started out like the mission initially was food insecurity. And so they were providing food to Black trans femmes specifically. Started and founded by our founder, Ian Field Stewart, who lives here in New York. She is an amazing singer and also actress. And now I said, since we've grown, we are moving over into the non-for-profit sector now. So we're restructuring. We have a new executive team. Voila. And yeah, it's great work. I really enjoy what I do.
I love that. Yeah, I was on the page and I went through all like the Linktree links and I was kind of like, you know, just trying to like look up and see everything. But I just want to commend you all for what you're doing because there's so many, you know, beautiful young, you know, trans femme women and Black trans femme in specific in the world who need, you know, the resources to help, you know, the whether it's like funding, just, you know, just need the support in general to be themselves, you know, and I really thank you all for that, you know, because it's just, you know, just being a part of that, you know, of the community, our community is just, you know, to an extension, I don't know what you all go through, you know, as trans femme, but, you know, for me, it's just like, I know how it is to, you know, be ridiculed for who you are and speaking your truth and, you know, feeling like growing up to where, you know, you're not able to be yourself, you know?
Absolutely.
And actually, we're going to touch on that. So you're in New York City now, but you're originally from St. Louis.
Yes.
So,
So I was born, actually, I was born in, a lot of people don't know this, I was born in Belleville, Illinois.
oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I was born in Belleville, Illinois. And um, my mother and father, they never got married, but they had ended up separating. My father ended up going to prison. I'm gonna be very open and transparent too for everyone. So my father ended up going to prison. My mother ended up moving us to St. Louis to get her life together. And so that is my connection to St. Louis ultimately. But I grew up in St. Louis for majority of my life. And you know, St. Louis is always home. But then the other aspect of that, and sometimes where you'll pick up on this very like Southern accent of mine, the Southern drawl. I spent a lot of time in the summers too in New Orleans and Houma, Louisiana, with extended family. So
Oh, wow. I love that. So, but growing up, you spent most of your time in St. Louis.
yeah,
Okay, so
Midwest girl till I die.
really, do you visit often?
Did I visit or?
Do you visit St. Louis often, or like
You know
people?
what? So I just recently left St. Louis. So I moved to New York in December.
Oh,
I will say I've been back like once since leaving in December. I have a very painful past with my city. Um, and so I don't know, like people ask me all the time, like, will you go back and like things like that. There's not really a desire that I have to go back because I don't feel like there's anything there for me, so to speak. But I will say one of the things that I am focused on is pouring back into my city and pouring back into the trans community, the Black trans community there in St. Louis for sure.
right. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, like, if you don't mind, what age were you when you kind of realized, you know, that, you know, you knew who you were inside? Because I feel like, you know, society kind of like, I feel like a lot of us, most of us, we know who we are, in my opinion, at a young age. And then, you know, society gets into our brains, tells us who we are, this masculine, feminine, all this and that. So what age were you at when you realized like, hey, this is me, you know?
I think I so let me say this.
Mhm.
preface with this. I came out as gay when I was 13.
Okay.
However, prior to that, I knew something was different. I was always like very girly, very effeminate. I loved like a feminine style. I remember like that was also the time like when I came out at 13, like short sets were like this thing. You remember they used to have like the shorts, the shirt, and like the hats that would match. I don't know if you remember that. You may be too young for that, but they had those sets that would match. I remember like my mother would buy them for me, and I hated it. But like that's what she would put me in. Like there was you could have put me in anything else except that. But like specifically, what I wanted was like femme presenting clothes. I didn't really start like I guess what you could consider what we call now like gender nonconforming style of dress until I got into my upper teens. Um, but to circle back to your question, I knew even when I came out as gay, I think I knew I was trans. I didn't have the language for it though. I also didn't have the support group or people around me that could point me in the right direction of the things that I needed to know about my trans identity or to kind of like just guide me through that story and guide me along that path, unfortunately. And that's honestly the reality of a lot of trans youth.
Okay. So when you did get to that point to where you said, hey, you started to learn more, got more information about it and knowing how to transition, how was your support system? Like, did you have any support? Did you have like family, friends, or anyone that you could rely on or talk to that supported you through, your whole transition?
So, and you probably know this, Mark. I've been transitioning for 4 years. So I started, yeah. So it's pretty still fresh. When I tell people that, they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like it's pretty new. I'm a baby still."
Does it like I feel like the average person would not be able to tell, to be honest, but for me, like I followed you for years even before, because I remember like seeing you previously before I guess the transition, and seeing how you were, and then just one day I just picked up on it. Like one day I saw something I don't even remember, but I just knew. I was like, oh, okay. I'm just the type of person that's your truth. That's who you are. And I can't say anything bad about that you're living your truth. And that's what I love about everyone who lives their truth. Just be you, because we're here for one reason, to be us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I think it was definitely like a slow kind of a transition because I lived a lot of my life, my adult life too, just being androgynous and, dressing very high femme. Um, Worked in fashion, was also just like obsessed with fashion. So that was also like my outlet for it. Um, and then, yeah, like one day, I think 4 years ago would have been, because what, it's 2022. So yeah, like in 2018, around my birthday, my birthday is August 5th. I remember like making the decision of just like, you know what, I am going to book an appointment because I'm trans and I've known this for quite some time. What I will say to answer your question, even then, in making that decision, um, the support system still wasn't there. A lot of that information that I found, I did it on my own. I also didn't know, like, St. Louis does not have a very large, expansive trans community. And to be quite frank, a lot of when you think about trans femmes and trans women, specifically Black trans women, our community is very divided because of course there's this power dynamic that you're seeking, that you're searching for. Everyone wants to be accepted and loved, right? When you think of marginalized communities, you think of communities that are lacking those things. So it's easy for you to view your sister or another trans woman as competition that will possibly get in the way of things that you're trying to achieve or things that you're trying to get access to. So even in all of that, like I never knew trans women that I could speak with. So unfortunately, I navigated a lot of my transness alone up until recently, and up until these last couple years.
Really, wow. Ugh, that's like just looking back, just thinking about it, I can only imagine how you felt because, of course, like, in general, the whole, gay and lesbian thing, it's been around, but it's still, you still have those people who are ignorant. But the
Yeah.
whole trans movement in general is not a movement, but, just the truth. It's like, I guess on a daily basis, a lot of people don't really see that everywhere, especially in the South, And so
Yeah.
I can only imagine, you going through this transition and then trying to tell someone, whether like it's a family member or a friend, like, hey, this is where I'm at in life, and this is what I
Yeah.
do, and I don't think a lot of people know how to take that. So I'm very happy that you have found support, within years for sure, because I can only imagine how you felt. Um, so like, how do I want to get into this? Like, what would you say to your younger self? In the beginning of transitioning, like your younger self, like with what you know now, what would you say, like to yourself with the knowledge that you have now from where you are now?
I think from where I'm sitting at now, like some of the things that I would tell my younger self is that number one, anything is possible, right? I never thought that I would be, and again, in full transparency and openness. And like, I think now, like, I'm living in a moment of my life where I'm just consistently and constantly, like, just wowed by myself and like wowed with the access and the things that I have now. But never in a million years would I have thought that I would be a Black trans woman that is a director, an executive director for a large non-for-profit, one of the largest non-for-profits, Black trans-led non-for-profits, in New York, living in New York, living out my dreams, making an amazing killer fucking salary as a Black person, as a Black trans woman, but also like sitting in what I do and like being fulfilled and happy to get up and go to work and do this work every day. So I think looking back, telling my younger self that these things are within reach, these things are possible, um, and that, I think I would have told myself too, like, you don't have to wait for anybody. I felt like, I didn't start transitioning until 4 years ago. The reasoning behind that was because I think I felt like I had to have this large support group. I had to have the support of my mother. I had to have the support of my father. Me and my mother don't have the best relationship. Me and my father, we have an okay relationship. Love them dearly, right? But um, I just didn't need to wait on them for their acceptance. And I spent a lot of my time waiting for them to possibly pick up on what was going on. But I should have just realized that, that acceptance should have just strictly come from me.
Right.
And that's really all I needed. And then once I became who I wanted to be, the people that were supposed to be in my life, the people that would accept me and things like that would fall into place easily. So
Correct. I love that. And I do want to ask, I'm curious. So, okay, so could you kind of like tell us, so, in specific, especially with the Okra Project, you dedicate, your activism to like the Black trans femme movement. So, okay, so I want to like differentiate like the Black trans femme to just a like trans femme in general. So, what is like, can you like talk about that a little bit in detail?
listen, I want to be completely, again, honesty and transparency is the deal, right?
Right.
Everything that I do is all the work that I do is dedicated to my community that is Black trans femmes, right? Love trans people, love my trans siblings. However, we cannot step away from the fact that white trans people
Mm,
have greater access, still have privilege, you know, and still can get things quicker than, someone like me or another Black trans woman can. So I really root myself in making sure that the work that I do is intentional, and is dedicated to Black trans femmes and Black queer people in general. You know, we become more expansive and things under the umbrella. So
Okay, thank you. You know, I like, of course, I just felt like, you know, I feel like some people would like be wondering, you know, that's everything that you said is pretty much in my head. I'm like, okay, this is what she's here for, because it's kind of like whether you're just like gay, lesbian, and part of like the LGBTQ, you know, community, it's like, you know, yes, we're all like a community of siblings, but we can't deny the world and how, you know, if you're a certain colored skin, you know, you benefit or you can get things easier, you know. So I definitely did.
absolutely. And you know, people ask me that all the time. You know, I get hit up with messages all the time, like, "Oh my God, like all you do is post about, you know, Black trans things," and I'm like, "Yeah, and why not? Why wouldn't I? And what about it?
Right.
Honestly, like,
Right.
what about?" And
Right.
typically those messages, you know, come from white trans and white queer people, surprisingly and shockingly, that are just like, well, what about us? What about us? And you know, when you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, a lot of that is, you know, this threat that they feel because they're being decentered. You know, they're not getting that attention, and it's just like, well, yeah, like what I do and my work is not about you, and it'll never be about you, unfortunately. So
Right. Yeah. And it's very like the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, how everyone's like, what about us, you know? And that's how I see it, you know, and that's, yeah, that's how I see it. Okay. And it's just crazy how, you know, life is and how everything just circles and in different forms. It's like you just have a pattern of things. And it's like, can we ever get to the point to where we can just say, hey, maybe I should just sit and listen and do better and just understand that I do have it better than other people, you know? You know?
absolutely, no, you're absolutely right.
Oh my gosh, yes. So, okay, you moved to New York recently. So, how did that come apart? So, like, were you in contact with like like, you know, the program, like the manager and the, you know, creator of the Okra Project while you were in St. Louis?
So I actually, you know what, the funny thing about it, before starting with the Okra Project, I knew of the Okra Project. I had seen our founder, Ian Phil Stewart. She had delivered this like amazing speech at a rally in New York, and like it was just very like moving, and I was just like, wow, in awe of her. And to this day, like I still feel that way about that moment and just about her in general. But I've been doing a lot of groundwork in St. Louis, and with, you know, Black Trans Lives Matter and things like that. And I did an interview back in, I want to say it was either 2019 or 2020. I did an interview with Birdie Magazine, and it was myself, Gia Love, and Dominique Morgan. And I remember us all like connecting after that interview that we did, in regards to Black Trans Lives Matter and like just some of the things that plague our community. And uh, I remember Dominique reaching out to me. It was like, you know, love your vibe, love your energy. Come to Omaha, because she stayed in Omaha, and she's like, come to Omaha, visit, like hang out, Kiki. You know, I've got this concert that, because she's also a singer, and she's like, I got this concert that I'm doing, and I was just like, you know, for a moment I was like, wait a minute, I don't know this lady. Like, I'm just gonna go somewhere, you know, to Omaha of all places. Like, I've never been to Omaha a day in my life. And so I'm like, oh, Omaha of all places. But I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do it. And so I went, and it was amazing. And we just formed this bond of sisterhood and friendship. And at the time, she was leading blackandpink.org, or Black and Pink, uh, which is another non-for-profit organization which works in like prison abolition and things like that for trans and queer people. And I started with them on the advisory council. She, you know, we spoke about the work that we were doing, how we respected and like loved each other's work and things like that. Um, and then I remember her, we had a conversation like right before I left. Um, Omaha, and she was just like, you know, I just feel that there's going to be some greater things out there for you. She's like, just keep your eye on the prize, just keep doing the work that you're doing, you know, keep at it. And I was like, okay. Because also she's also a person that I looked up to, you know, and grew to love. And she tapped me on my shoulder. Yeah, one day that day came and she tapped me on my shoulder. She's like, hey, you know, I have this awesome opportunity that I am, you know, going to move over to the Okra Project and be the executive director. And I think I have a spot for you on my team that you'd be amazing at. And she's like, you go ahead and think about that and sit on that, and then you let me know what you think. And I was immediately like, just out the gate, I was like, absolutely. You know, I know it sounds crazy, but like for someone like Dominique, I think she has like this energy about her, and she's just an amazing, powerful, phenomenal woman and brilliant. And I think, you know, it's just one of those things where I was like, girl, I will follow you to the end of the world if you ask me to. That's how much I've grown to love, and presented me with this opportunity to come with her to Okra. I was like, absolutely, like no questions asked. And so, of course, in and with that, I had to relocate to New York to be here to do that work, especially as Okra was restructuring.
Wow. I love that. Like you felt the energy. Sometimes, you know, you just meet people and you just feel their energy and their vibe and you just know they're genuine and you just take the chance. And it seems like you took that risk and you went with your gut, your spirit, and you said, hey, I feel this. I feel like this is right for me. And look at you now, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that was a lot of it. It was like a gut feeling. I was just like, okay. You know, I think that in my life I've always had to navigate, and I haven't always made the best choices.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that as I've gotten older and I've gotten more secure in myself, my identity, my transness, my womanhood, it's been much more easier for me to decipher what's good for me and what's not. And so this move, and continuing to do the work that I was already passionate about and loving at a deeper and higher level with a group of phenomenal trans women as well, just felt right, and it felt like the smart decision, basically.
Right, right. Okay. So dating, I want to talk about dating, and I've been curious. I want to know about dating and how that's been for you, for your personal experience, you know, with dating. Like, would you say, like, if you don't mind, like, you know, giving us a brief history on like dating, like, have you, like, you've dated a rapper? So have you dated like a lot of quote unquote heterosexual men, you know? I was just connect. Sorry about that, guys. The connection got lost and we had to pick up where we left off. So I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far and my discussion with Gabrielle. If you haven't already stopped by, go to inlinepodcast.live for more interviews with other like minds and creatives. Talk about dating.
Oh,
I'm very curious about dating when it,
dramatic.
yeah, so how is that? Okay, so it's because we all know how it goes whenever you're like in the community and you date someone who considers themselves heterosexual, you know? And then also, I guess my question is, how do you feel? Like, do you feel comfortable? Like, how do you feel when you're approached by a guy? Do you like, I don't know, like, do you feel very hesitant or how do you feel? Like, let's just talk about it. How do you feel about dating in general?
I mean, dating in general for me has been such a let's just reel it back and let's talk about how it all started, especially like with the beginning of my transition. Dating was always hard. I think there's a lot of pressure on trans women for us to blend in and be passable. And let's, for the record, that's not everyone's, ideology of their transness and how they want to present and things like that. So I don't want people to like look at listen to this podcast and then like see me and think that, that I am the aesthetic of what a trans woman should look like. Because I think that oftentimes gets lost in that conversation. But what I will say, for me, this is how I choose to present my gender and my transness. Men who identify as heterosexual are more than often than not attracted to me, right? Because the ideology, I think, from some of the conversations that I've had too with men that I've been involved with, is that like looking at me, I'm aesthetically pleasing. I blend in, just as a cis woman would. And so when I initially transitioned, that was very difficult because I didn't have access to some of the things that I have access to now. I was also still medically transitioning, which, comes with a lot of changes and things like that. You get softer, you get, I feel, me personally, I feel like being on HRT ages you backwards as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, I feel like it ages you backwards. At least for me, I feel like it ages me backwards. But there's a lot of pressure when you think about safety too. You have to take into account like the countless murders that are, happening, the countless Black trans women that are dying, and again, more often than not, those trans women have been involved with those men. They know those men. They've either been in relationships with those men, and those are men that also identify as heterosexual. So dating is very daunting. What I will say is I am dating currently. So if anyone is listening to this and thinks they can slide in my DMs, that is not the case. Unfortunately, I'm a taken woman.
I did not know that. So now we all know. So do not be jumping in her DMs, fellas, okay?
Yeah, do not jump in the DMs because it's not going down. And surprisingly, what I will say, when we think about safety, one of the things that, and I won't say that it's a compromise. I don't want to say that it's a compromise. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things too, as we navigate sexuality, gender identity, what I'm also seeing, and I don't know if you are seeing this within any of your friendship groups or any circles that you run in, but I'm seeing like this broader spectrum of sexuality that is taking place, right? So for instance, the guy that I'm dating currently, he identifies as gay. That's comfortable for him. He has historically been involved with men. Now he also has dated women, but he hasn't dated a woman in quite some time. But I say that to say that I think that attraction and love is just so expansive. And I'm happy to see that some people are willing to step outside of that box and explore other options and like really focus on the aspect of like what love is. Like, you meet somebody, you love how they make you feel. You love their energy. You love who you are when you're around them. Right. And it just becomes this amazing thing. And me and this guy have known each other for 8 years, and we were always in like relationships or just always in like different parts in our lives. He has known me pre-transition. He has known me and watched me through my transition up until now. And he came out to New York in February, and we were able to spend some time together, and it was amazing and it was very special. And we tied the knot, and not tied the knot like that, but
okay, because
we tied the dating knot. Like, oh, okay, so this is we want this. Like, we have the same goal. We're moving in the same direction, and we really feel good about this. So, it's been, I mean, it's great now, right? Because I have never felt more seen, more loved, more heard, more supported than I do when I'm with him. The only thing is that like we're dating long distance right now.
So it has to be kind of
He's in LA, I'm in New York, so
that can
yeah.
be opposite sides of the world.
Opposite sides of the world, but we make it work. Like we make it work. Like I said, he was here, and then I'll be there in like a couple weeks. So
Aw.
yeah, we'll make it work.
I'm so happy for you, and I'm so happy that you found love because you are very deserving of it for
Thank
sure.
you,
I've been
thank you,
following you for years, and you're very deserving of it. And seeing,
thank you so much.
you were like, other relationships, etc., this and that. And so, like, in some of your past relationships, do you feel like you were being like judged? Like, have you been in relationships to where they have never dated a trans femme woman?
Yeah. So you spoke on it a bit where you saw that I was in a relationship a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then that gentleman and I broke up, but very nasty breakup too. But he had never dated a trans woman before. He identified as bisexual. I don't know if he still identifies as bisexual, but I mean, I don't know. He's dated like men, I think, after me, but like this across the board. But I was the first trans woman that he had ever been with. And so what I will say is when we talk about some of the difficulties of relationships, when you get around like the scariness of it is like, is this man going to sleep with me and then harm me the next day? Or is this man fetishizing me? I think one of the most difficult things for our relationship is like, well, I met him like right when I transitioned, and while I was also navigating my transness, um, I have to think back to the fact that he was also navigating that with me for the first time and didn't know what to do either, didn't know what to expect either, just as I didn't. And so it was kind of like this blind leading the blind
Right.
situation. And it became very difficult for us to be together. And I think that a lot of our differences, a lot of what I was going through, a lot of the changes that I was experiencing mentally, physically, and things like that made it very hard for me to really like focus on the things that I should have been focusing on in that relationship, right? Accountability is big for me. So when I'm talking about that specific relationship, because it is such a monumental relationship in my life and in my trans journey, I can't help but hold myself accountable and speak to the accountability that I wasn't like always the best partner. I wasn't the best lover, but also holding space and saying and being honest and transparent and saying that I just didn't know what the fuck was going on with me, you know? And going to therapy is very scary, like when you think about it. And I should have been going to therapy at that time. We should have been going to therapy at that time and like working through some things. But yeah, like I think that was my first relationship as a trans woman, and that was the most difficult relationship that I've ever experienced, the most heartbreaking relationship that I've ever also been in too, you know. I love him to death still to this day, and support him and want the world, you know, for him, just as I would hope that he does for me. I don't know if that's true, but um, yeah, it navigating relationships as a trans woman, it can be difficult, especially like when you're first starting out, you know.
Yeah, because I'm sure you're like you mentioned, like there is like this whole thing to where trans women are being like murdered, being abused, just for being trans women, and it sucks because it's like it's by the same men who fetishize trans women or want to have sex with you all, and then want to harm you, and it's horrible,
Yeah.
thinking about that.
They want to have sex and they don't want anything to do with you. Like you're literally either an experiment or an experience, you know. So
Yeah, that's horrible.
wild.
Oh gosh, it's horrible. So like when you let's say it's 4 years ago, you're rediscovering like who you are, getting back to who you are, who you know you are inside your transition. Um, the first time the first time you felt like, hey, this is me, this is Gabrielle, like that moment, take me back to that moment and take me to the moment of you walking out on the streets and being your authentic self, or at least, navigating that of who knew you wanted to be. So how was that for you in that moment? Like walking, like, did you really were you like fearful in that moment? Like, I know you probably were like happy, you felt good about yourself, but walking out in public, I'm sure you had concerns. So how was that moment?
When I think to it, it's so interesting, like being asked that question because I don't think I really like thought of it until like
Mhm.
recently. I think like my transition was just so natural, and like I said, it happened. So you saw it,
Mhm.
we've been following each other, so you saw it happen just so it was basically like overnight, and but what I will say is like the moment I think that I looked and like saw myself, and I say this and I preface this with, I think that we are our worst critics, right?
Right.
Um, I just had, uh, I just got my boobs done. What was that, last year? Um, you probably saw it on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just got my boobs done last year, and I think like I finally like, along with everything else, it's just like I think I looked in the mirror and was just like, this is it. Like this is me. I see the vision that I've been curating and cultivating and building over these last couple years, and like this is it. And that was just like, I think that night, it was like, I think it was like the first night that I was able to stop wearing my compression bra. Um, and some of the swelling and the bruising had gone down. And it was much more easy for me to like look at it. Cause I was like, oh my God, like these look terrible. They're swollen. They're so ugly. Like, is this what they're gonna look like? And then finally, like I said, once I took off the compression bra, after some weeks, I remember like going to the mirror and like just crying. I remember I cried all night because I was just like, wow, like my body is coming together and like how I've always envisioned it. And so yeah, I didn't see it, and I don't want to speak for other trans women, but I think that sometimes it's difficult navigating your physical, um from an inside perspective. I always had people like telling me like, oh my God, like Gabby, you're gorgeous, you're da 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 da, but it was very difficult for me to believe that and see that, until I achieved like certain things, or until I had my hair a certain type of way. Um, and yeah, so it can be difficult kind of like navigating that for trans women. But that I will to answer your question, I think that was the first time that I was just like,
Oh,
yeah, this is this is it.
yeah, I love that because it's a whole journey. And like you said, I feel like we can be our own, worst, critics. And so pretty much it's kind of like you have this vision, who you want to be, and how you want to look, how you want to feel. It's kind of like someone going to the gym to like perfect their body the way they want it to look, It's like in a way, not of course the same, but in terms of the mentality, in terms of like, okay, you're not going to be satisfied until you reach that certain goal. So even though other people like see you and they're like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful, this, that, and the third, but you're not going to feel that way until you reach those goals.
You reach those goals, yeah, and until I guess you see yourself that way, and who knows, I think it's a journey, right? So if any trans women are listening to this, it's a journey. Take your time, don't rush it, you know. Get comfortable with your body. The best thing that I think that I did for myself, was not beat myself up over it. I was just like, these are the goals that I want for my body. I will achieve them, when they're meant to be achieved, and I will work tirelessly to achieve those, but I'm not gonna beat myself up over it, and I'm gonna, love my body um, as it is until I get it to where I want it to be. But once I reach that mark, trust you're gonna see
Yeah,
it.
yeah, no, I can't wait. No, I love following you, so I cannot wait. So yeah, what general advice would you give to the young, average, not even young, just, because anyone at any age could be going through, the state of mind to where they're ready to transition to be a beautiful trans woman. So what type of general advice would you give to the, you know, trans woman, trying to discover and navigate herself and her life?
I mean, my biggest thing right now is like what I see a lot of young trans youth reach out to me about, and I cannot reiterate, it's not a race.
Mhm.
It's very easy to get sucked into this distorted view of watching what the next trans woman is doing. Um, and not to say that's bad to think that way. I think that, when we think of society and we think of entertainment and things like that, that we're conditioned to feel that way. When you are a trans woman, I think that that's heightened times 10, because you think about passability. Passability could be just something that you want, yes, for yourself because you want to look a certain way. But then also passability translates to safety when you're walking down the street. Um, but what ends up happening with that more often than not, and it's terrible that it does, like we have young trans women and just trans women in general who are going to get these quick overnight surgeries and getting botched and facing some hardships and like some real health issues due to that. And so again, reiterating the fact that this is not a race. Your trans journey is your journey. Live it safely, live it fully, live it wholly. Take your time, um, and just be you. Stay true to you.
Okay.
I cannot stress that enough. And I think that's one of the things that like really, really helped me. I think when I was younger, I thought, of those things. I was just like, oh, I heard about, someone that was, pumping silicone or whatever, like maybe I should go get some. But then I thought to myself, I was like, I can't do that. Like, absolutely fucking not. Like, I can't be going to someone's house, don't know them, don't know what they're, like, no. But I understand the pressures of that though, too. I hold space for that. But yeah, I think that's and also that it's possible to achieve anything you want to achieve.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And so, all right, and lastly, what inspired you to keep going in life? I love
To
asking.
keep going or keep growing.
Well, going and well, and growing, both actually, going and growing. How about that?
Growth is a new thing. Growth is a new thing for me. It really, really is. I've grown so much over the last 2 years. I look back at who I was 2 years ago, and I'm just like, not saying that that person was like a horrible version of myself, but I'm just like, who was that person? Like, wow. I was having a conversation last night with my partner in regards to like just relationship things and like the way that I even like view relationships and the way that I approach relationships, the level of transparency and authenticity that I approach uh, relationships both platonically and intimately are so different than I was doing 2 years ago. But also, I think one of the big factors of that is I've reached a level in my life where I feel safe, like I'm secure. Um, my life up until like 2 years ago, I lived in survival mode. Um, and so it's different. You have a different view, a different lens to look through when you're not living in survival mode and you're actually living and stepping in purpose and living in your power and standing in your power and know who you are. And so that has been like my journey over these last 2 years, is just consistent growth. You know, after that relationship ended, uh, I spent a great deal of time in solitude and going to therapy and working on myself and realizing, you know, how I was at fault in a lot of the things, and not only platonic but intimate relationships, a lot of things that happened to me in life too, how I played a key role into that, and standing in accountability, and then mapping out a plan for, okay, how do we not get back to that point in life? You know, how do we continue to grow? How does Gabrielle continue to grow into the woman that she envisions herself to be and who she wants to be, a woman of the community, you know, a powerful woman, a lovable woman, and a woman who also just loves herself unconditionally and is secure in herself. And so all that work has not gone like unnoticed by myself, and then like also unnoticed by my peers. Like I have friends that even tell me to this day, like, you have changed, and like we love this new version of Gabby. Like we love that Gabby, but this Gabby, they're like, oh, she's the shit.
Right, exactly. Because you're being you, you know who you are, you're being authentically yourself, and you're happy just
Yeah.
being this fierce, badass trans femme woman, a woman. Like I love it. I love it. And that's why like I had to contact you, because I see it, and it exudes for sure. Just so you know. I know you hear that from your friends, but from someone who's been following you for years, it exudes online. I love seeing your growth, your journey. You're just so gorgeous. I have to just say, by the way.
You're so
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah. But I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to chat with me and the E-Line podcast today. I'm very grateful. I'm sure so many like beautiful young Black trans femme women, you know, who listen to this podcast are going to just feel so motivated, inspired, and uplifted by you. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And of course, we're going to keep in contact. But thank you, everyone, for listening to us today. I am your host, Mark Rose. This is the E-Line podcast. Thank you, Gabrielle. And oh, actually, before we leave, where can we find you online? Where can we find you?
So you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Muva Souza. That's MUVASOUZA. And then like my link tree, and you know, I'm always posting things in my link tree or adding additions if you want to help the trans community and help your trans brothers and sisters. You know, I always have like a list that I update of like GoFundMe's and things like that, and surgery funds for Black trans and queer people. So check that out. It's in my bio. And yeah, follow me on Twitter and Instagram.
All righty. And we'll definitely have that on our site, elinepodcast.live, under her article with all of her information if you want to like look for her more in detail. But thank you everyone for listening, and thank you, Gabrielle. And until next time, keep creating, keep being beautiful, and just keep inspiring, and just keep being yourself.
Thank you, love.